Hello everyone and welcome along to This Racing Life, where this week our cameras are here in the magnificent North Yorkshire countryside, and in this week's show we pay a visit to both Ruth Jefferson and Brian Ellison as they ready some of their stable stars for tilts at the big spring festivals. Following the heartbreak of Waiting Patiently's early departure on seasonal debut in the King George, Ruth Jefferson reflects on the career so far of her Newstead Stables flag bearer, as well as giving us the lowdown on some of her younger potential stars of tomorrow. Definitely Red is the apple of Brian Ellison's eye, and the ever-popular Malton handler has mapped out a slightly different campaign for the 10-year-old in a bid to become the first Northern trainer to land the Cheltenham Gold Cup for 26 years. And on the subject of Northern-trained Gold Cup winners, we hooked up with Anthea Morshead, so closely associated with the 1993 Gold Cup hero Jadami, to meet the subject of one of the greatest comebacks in sporting history. Ruth Jefferson is looking forward to the spring festivals with a small but select group of talented individuals, spearheaded by the top-class Waiting Patiently. Unbeaten in his first 6 races over fences, the son of Flemingsforth was heartbreakingly robbed of the chance to maintain that unbeaten record when brought down in the early stages of the King George. I began by asking his trainer how her stable star came out of the race.
He picked up a little injury after the Ascot Chase last year, and we were prepping him for Aintree and went out for the summer, and it's just been a slow, when you've had an injury you can't really rush him back, so we've just took it day by day and let him come to himself and work on his fitness. And then we went to Kempton and that didn't quite go to plan, and we've just been waiting for a bit of rain ever since. I suppose
the Kempton experience, because to go 10 months off the track and then running straight into the King George, and no one could foresee what would happen to the horse on the day. The best thing is that he came out of it A-OK. I suppose for you, going into it, it's almost like it's left more questions than answers.
Yeah, it has. I mean, a lot of people said, you can't go to the King George without a prep run, but he's such an easy horse to get fit. It's unbelievable. He's such an active horse. He does everything and he uses all of himself. And, he come in the beginning of, in the end of July, I think it was, and did a month on the walker before we started, but cantering him. But from that point forward, he was always up the gallops, and it was slow work, but slow work's fat burning work. So, like I say, it just takes no getting fit at all. So I wasn't worried about fitness. We were more interested in whether we stayed to 3 miles, because that would have told us, for the rest of this season and next season, what we could aim him at. We didn't get that far.
Is he actually a fragile horse, or is it just a load of circumstances over time that have conspired against him?
I wouldn't call him fragile. He picked up a little injury after he won at Haydock. That just required a very small surgery. It was nothing major at all. But, after a surgery, you're off a month, and then that's your season ended by the time you're fit again. So I think it is just circumstances have just kept him off. He's ground dependent. He is ground dependent, and you can't run him unless there's cut in the ground. But no, the niggly things, they're not major things. He's never had a big injury that's kept him off a long time. But it's just the way it is.
Does he work like a brilliant horse?
I does everything effortlessly. You work him, and one of the lads said to me, I said, how did he work? He wasn't riding him, he was on the horse next to him. I said, how did he work? And he said, he came up and he said, he just looked at me. He said, he does it that easily. He says, he just stopped, said, all right, Steve, and, and then carried on. He said, he's not a runaway, but he's a forward-going horse, and he knows what he's doing, so you can work him. If you worked him with a slow horse, you'd work upsides a slow horse. If you worked him with a fast horse, you'd work upsides a fast horse. But he just does it that easily. It's unbelievable.
The impression he gave me last year when he beat Q-Card, and it was one of the races of the season, if not the best race of last season, he didn't look like a horse who was absolutely at his limit at the end of that race. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'd say so. I thought he got distracted. He just made a little bit of a hash of the last, and Brian gave him a slap, which is behind the saddle, which he doesn't really like. And I think the drink at the line was him looking at someone who looked like they were trying to film him coming past or something. But no, I don't think he was stopping, and he didn't blow over hard after the race. And he came back, and He looked fantastic for a week, and then we had a bit of snow, and whether it just knocked him, I don't know, but he just went backwards on me. So we shelved Cheltenham, and we're prepping him for Aintree after that.
The idiosyncrasies of British racetracks, we obviously have various different tracks, different styles, different cambers. Is it all about flat tracks for him? Is it an absolute must, or...?
It's a general belief we've had for a while. If you watch his races at Carlisle and Sedgefield, he runs on the forehand, his weight is forward. He's in your hands, almost pulling you down. And that's how he rides up the gallop. He sits and leans against you. And it just means when you're running into a downhill fence, you're not coming back off your hocks quite the same way as a horse that doesn't do that. And just if you watch his Carlisle run, he doesn't always jump downhill fences that well. You throw in the speed of Cheltenham and the fact that half the fence is downhill when you walk the track. A lot of people don't realise that the back straights, a lot of it's downhill.
And when they get racing hard, you're going downhill.
You get racing hard, you're going fast, your weight's on the forehand, you're almost unbalanced anyway, that you're more prone to forcing an error. And if you watch him on his flat tracks, he just jumps that little bit better. And even Brian said for a while, when he rode him at Sedgefield, all right, in a handicap of 123, to when he went to Newcastle, he thought he jumped Newcastle better, he thought he jumped Haydock better again. And it's just been in the back of our minds that he's maybe just better on a flat track.
In a perfect world, where next?
In a perfect world, you'd go back to Ascot, because he's won that race.
So obviously the plan, we don't know yet whether he stays 3 miles. We hope he would. We will learn hopefully at some point. But is he a very fast horse that just has that bit of stamina as well?
Yes. He has a very high cruising speed. Brian was saying at Kempton in the King George, he said they set off very fast over the first 2, and he said a lot of people, were a little bit behind the bridle. He said he was hard on it. But he's always a horse, he settles in his races now, which he never used to do. He used to tank through his races a little bit, whereas he completely switches off now in behind, and that'll help him see a trip out. We just didn't find out if it helped him see that whole 3 miles. But you'd like to think so, and you'd like to think he's a good enough horse that he's versatile.
He could go through the next couple of years and win a few Grade 1s here or there, and it'd be a fantastic career. But do you think it would be an opportunity missed if he didn't go and contest a top level race at the Cheltenham Festival?
I'd rather regret not going than going.
Yeah,
is how I'd word it. If we took him there thinking that it's maybe not going to suit him and something happened to him, you would always be gutted that you'd done it, wouldn't you? It's a tough one. It's a tough one because he's never ever had his opportunity to go. We had him entered in the handicap last year that Frodon won before he went to Ascot, and he'd just come back from a head cold and he was fine. He was bouncing and it was absolutely fine, but we decided not to run him because we said he'd just come back to himself, and if he went and had a hard race, that would maybe wipe his season. So we went to Kempton instead, won the listed race, and then went to Ascot. And it would have given him his chance to go to Cheltenham, but every time we've ever had that chance to go to Cheltenham, something else has come up. So he's never been, and I don't know. I don't know if he'll ever go, but he'll either will or he won't.
You've got a huge career ahead of you, and hopefully lots and lots of really good horses to come. But he's pretty much a horse of a lifetime already, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. The good horses don't come along that often. We don't have the buying power. When you read in the paper, JP McManus has bought 3 favourites for the Cheltenham Festival. That's not us, is it? So to get him, he's a big horse, and I'm not wrapping him up in cotton wool because I'm afraid not to have him, contrary to people's popular belief. I'm just doing what's right by him. And
do you like it because over in Ireland and down south, of course, the best horses are owned by and trained by such few people that up here in Yorkshire, you're doing your own thing, but you're always going to be considered, I suppose, the plucky underdog. Do you like that tagline?
It just doesn't bother me. I think Northern racing gets a bad press in a lot of ways, and it gets ignored, in a lot of times. When Cape Tribulation and At-a-Glance won at the Cheltenham Festival, in the end of year review in the Racing Post, they never got mentioned. And yet they'd done the double-double at Cheltenham and Aintree and never got mentioned. Whereas when Nicky Henderson got mentioned for nearly doing it the following year, we called the cops.
Did he?
And it's odd that people can just forget things very quickly. And Dad, if you look through his career, always had a nice horse. Didn't always have a Grade 1 horse, because you don't get Grade 1 horses that often. But he always had a nice horse, and people respected him for that. But you don't get the publicity for that you would have somewhere else.
How much is your style inherited from him?
Well, I probably learnt the vast majority of it from him, but I'm very like him in that I'm stubborn enough to have my own opinion. So I'd change things. I remember Mum said once, when he was at Gordon Richards, he just changed the feed one week. and just changed the entire way Gordon Richards fed his horses, because he changed them all from corn and things to nuts, and he just ordered the feed and sorted it out, and Gordon was just like, oh right, and that would be the sort of thing I would do. He couldn't complain, because I would be the same. I was like, we're trying that, and he'd be like, all right.
More from Ruth Jefferson later in the show. In 2015, Cartmel Clerk of the Course Anthea Morshead was devastated when her pet terrier Jack went missing from the Cumbrian course. What ensued made news headlines and created a social media storm. Anthea picks up the story.
You know, he did have form. This wasn't his first time, but it was his worst. And it was the evening before racing at Cartmel, and we'd just finished walking the course, and I'd just gone to check something in the parade ring, and Jack just went missing. And usual thing, I shouted, around the place, looked everywhere, and didn't find him. And to cut a long story short, he went missing for 10 days. And everyone was so kind, everyone was looking for him. Jimmy Moffat, he got his terriers and walked all through the woods, and he had his own Facebook page and everything, but nobody saw him at all for 10 days. And then all of a sudden, 6 o'clock on a Sunday morning, suddenly he was back on the racecourse. And we think that he'd lost about 3 pounds in weight, which when you're only a stone is quite a lot. He'd lost quite a bit of sort of skin and hair, and I think he'd been a bit like Winnie the Pooh. I think he'd gone down a rabbit hole and then couldn't get out, and had to wait until he'd lost the weight to get out.
Has his actions over the years since, is he a bit more reserved now? Do you think that experience sort of wasn't lost on him?
He is a bit better. He tends not to go for days at a time now. He tends to just go for a few hours. But I must say that when I first went back to Cartmel to walk the course, his sort of first course walk after his disappearance, we went out through the horse gate at the end of just past the winning post, and he went straight across at the back of the water, jumped the wall into the wood and gone. And I immediately thought, oh my God, no one will forgive me now if he's gone again. I don't think anyone would have the appetite for it. But anyway, thank God he came back. But so many occasions. There was one time I was walking, again, Cartmel, with head groundsman Gary. And we looked at each other and said, oh, we haven't seen Jack for a while. And we got to the village crossing where the cars come across the course into the car park. It was a non-racing day. And this car went across in front of us, and Jack was in the back window, sort of looking out of the back window.
Well, that's the thing. It's fair to say that, I suppose recently with Jamie Osborne's dog, which went viral on Twitter, and we see clerks of the courses with their dogs on Twitter, then they become quite famous celebrities in their own right. And I suppose people around the whole of Northern racing must have been delighted to know that he was back and well. Oh,
people were absolutely brilliant. It's so kind. And then one funny thing, there was Dad and I and a friend went to Aintree in the April, so months and months later, and we'd arrived early, and I was reversing the car in the owners and traders car park, and so I had the window down, and 2 chaps walked past, and they said, "That's the woman who lost the dog at Cartmel." And I think I'm pretty much just Jack's owner now, yeah.
If only he could talk.
Exactly. He should have a GoPro camera on, shouldn't he?
Brian Ellison cannot contain the regard in which he holds his stable star, definitely red. Convinced that the attritional nature of his 10-year-old's victory in last year's Cotswold Chase left a mark, the popular Malton handler has elected to take a different approach to this season's festival prep, in the hope that the two of them can deliver a first Northern trained winner of the Cheltenham Gold Cup in over a quarter of a century.
And we just thought last year, like the Cotswold, it was a hard slog, and personally, it probably just took a bit edge off him,
How do you reflect on the Gold Cup last year?
I thought it was a tremendous race. The ground was very, very heavy, which probably didn't suit us. Because
was it almost that bit too much for him? Because he just likes to get his toe in, doesn't he?
I know he's won a heavy entry, but heavy entry ground is totally different to what Cheltenham was. And like the probably fences are another foot higher, so he's having to work the jump. But yeah, no, good to soft ground is ideal for him.
Do you feel like it was a learning curve for you because therefore you've been able to plan this year's campaign sort of a bit differently?
Probably, but I think he's a better horse this year.
Do you?
Yeah, he's come in this year and he won at Weatherbean, and I thought he was very, very impressive in entry.
He was.
You know, you give a horse £6, that's...
A King George runner-up, £6.
Yeah, and Danny Nevin had to go for the stake, you know, so I thought he was very impressive, and since then his work's been fantastic.
So at the age of 10, you think he's as good, if not better than ever?
He's better. He's definitely better. His work rate's better, everything's better.
So it's noticeable at home that he's an improved animal this time around?
Definitely.
You said about last year what you learned from it. Did you come away thinking, I mean, obviously the horse has been considered for Grand Nationals and so on, but did you come away thinking, I really want another go at the Gold Cup?
I actually never thought about it. I just thought, I was just probably disappointed. You know, you getting in the Gold Cup is great, but I mean, we weren't expecting to win it, but I was a bit disappointed the way he ran. I just thought he was laboured and struggling a long way out, even though he ran on to finish 6th. And we came away, well, both we came away a bit disappointed, really.
It would look on his form figures as well that getting him fresh, I mean, he's a very good form figures horse anyway, he's got an excellent winning ratio, but is getting him fresh very important?
Yeah, well, he always, first time out every year, he's never won or just got beaten, you know, so he always runs well. And he's a horse that we don't overwork anyway. Yeah, keeping him fresh.
Does he work like a good horse at home?
I just think, last year his race was a Coxwell.
Yeah. So you feel like perhaps the Gold Cup was left behind on trials day?
Yeah.
So this year's been that much different. He went to Wetherby, he went to Aintree, and as you said, he put up a really good performance at Aintree. And it's almost like what's he got, a 14 out of 27 win ratio. To have a horse like that, but it's almost like at his grade, he's almost unbeatable. But then I was looking back and he's not running that many Grade 1 races, has he? He's running 3 of them, I think.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate that one he unseated Danny.
Yeah. At Aintree.
Yeah, they just had, he wanted to take off, Danny didn't. And he went, Danny unseated him. He unseated Danny, but I think this year, after we won at Aintree, what other race could we go for without giving him a hard slog? And it was either go to Ireland, which we didn't want to do the travelling, and then it was a Coxwell again, which was going to end up being a hard slog. So,
do you think he's bang there among the sort of live principals for the Gold Cup this time around?
Well, you know, we're rated 164, you know, and he's got every chance.
In terms of the way the race pans out, they obviously, in a championship race like that, he's very, very dominant in his own level, but it's not like he's not capable of laying up with them, with the good horses, is he? He's very much at home with them.
Oh, definitely. You know, when you look at all through his form, he has big good horses, you know. And I think he's very underrated.
Yeah.
You know, he has got a good CV, he's got a lot of good horses behind him.
And
he's won the right races, you know, he won the big chase at Doncaster, he won the Wetherby big chase, and he didn't win, he hacked up. And then his win ratio is fantastic.
I mean, that'd be the absolute dream horse, to have a horse that knows how to win and wins so frequently. Do you think people sort of take him for granted a little bit and think that he just goes and dominates his kind of races?
Like, you made down south, I don't think up north they do. I mean, he's well liked up north, you know, so.
Do you think there's something in that? You talk about the up north thing, and he would be the first Gold Cup winner since 1993 to represent the north. Obviously, you'd love to train the winner of the Gold Cup come what may, but would that be an also personal ambition to be able to fly the flag for the north?
Well, yeah, I mean, we are grossly underrated compared to the south, but we don't have the owners. You need a lot of money to buy a good horse nowadays, you know. So, and he wasn't expensive compared to what they are nowadays. So, and to see last year we had the Mac and Bullet, it only cost $9,000. She's one of the top rated 2-year-olds around last year. So fillies. I know it's not always the case that money. It gives you the option to buy a good horse, doesn't it?
And you're going down, and I think I said earlier as well, actually, that the concentration of the really good horses, they're in very few hands nowadays, aren't they, really? So you go down and you take on the Nicky Hendersons, Paul Nicholls, and then, of course, Willie Mullins and Gordon Elliott over Ireland. Do you enjoy the thrill of the battle, going in and taking them on?
Yeah, I'd take anybody on. That doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm not frightened of anybody. Never have been, you know. So. Yeah.
Do you get very excited for the Cheltenham Festival?
I love Cheltenham.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, it'd be nice to have a winner there. Well, I also know it's very hard to have a winner there.
Just knocking on the door so many times.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
It is the Olympics of jump racing, and I suppose when you're a Cheltenham Festival winning rider, trainer, owner, that's you set up then, isn't it? That's what you're forever associated as.
Yeah, I think when you want to train a horse, you want to go to Cheltenham, you want to go to Royal Ascot, you want to do all these. But obviously you've got to have your own and you've got to have a horse to do it. But that's what you want. And
go back to Definitely Red. Has he at the age of 10 now, and with the CV that he's got? I mean, if he was retired tomorrow, you'd say he retired after achieving an awful lot. Has he always been the apple of your eye all the way through?
He's improved every year, and to train, he's fantastic. He just, you know, he's so easy. He just gets on with his job. He eats. He wasn't a very good grubber when we first got him, but he eats everything. Andy Robinson rides him every day. He goes away on his own, and Andy does a great job with him. But you just don't know he's there. But if he retired tomorrow, he'd be the best horse I've ever trained.
Would he?
Yeah.
Comfortably?
Yeah, easy, yeah.
And just to have interest with the grade ones, he ran in the Albert Bartlett, then the Gold Cup and Aintree last year. Was it a case of you not wanting to overface him too much, or it's just a case of the opportunities?
Well, I found out the first time we went to Cheltenham, he had a hard race at Haydock.
Yeah.
And he won a good race at Haydock, and he had a hard race, and I think that was the score then. And I think when we look back, when he has disappointed, he's had a hard race before that, so that's what we're getting away from. So
it's interesting to see that the very few, it's never like he's actually caught out at the top level, it's just that he's not gone in probably fit and firing enough to
yeah, it was learning about him in the early days, but it's a preparation, you know, and he doesn't need too many races. He doesn't need, he will get a hard, you know, when he has a hard race, he needs a lot of time to get over it.
So do you think you'll ever have him better than he is? If the Gold Cup was, say, tomorrow, would you ever have him better than he is now?
No, he's better now than he's ever been. He's in great form.
Where would a horse to run with real distinction in the Gold Cup, like he did last year, where would that rank among your career achievements?
Well, it'd be fantastic, but it's another day the next day. You want to do it again and again, don't you? But if he ran this year and you finish in the first four and he runs his heart out, we'll be over the moon, you know. So.
Among a select band of nice young horses housed at Newstead Stables, Ruth shared with me plans for a couple of them, starting with the exciting mare Mega Yates.
The owners who bought it, David and Mary Farkas, they'd moved up from the south and they'd had the horses down south, but they liked to come and see them quite a bit, so they looked at north and someone had recommended Dad to them. And they'd had one or two horses with us, and they had a really nice horse called Black Ivory that we lost at Haydock last year. Yeah. That they bought from us, and they just said to me, they emailed one day and Mary said we'd really like to buy a pointer because we don't want to wait, and they have a young horse with us that should run this week, you know, but they didn't want to wait. They wanted something that had won, had ability, and they know it doesn't always work out, but the idea was there that, you know, it would go forward. And they gave me a budget that I had to sit down about because it was a bit bigger budget than I was used to, and they'd spoke to a friend, and Bobby Ryan, you know, was going to help with the Irish point-to-point farm. And we went to the sales and we had a list of 5, and Meg Yates was the first one that come in. And she was a little bit over budget, but just a lovely mare. Yeah. She's out of a presenting mare and she looks like a presenting. She has a presenting accordion shoulder all day long. You know, she's tall, she doesn't look it. She's quite lean looking, but she's quite stocky when you sit on her, and just the loveliest of walkers. And she'd shown a nice attitude when she won. She stuck her head out and, you know, I mean, you couldn't write it. I wasn't even going to run her in a bumper. But we were going to go straight hurdling, but we never got any ground to school on. So we ran her at Carlisle and she won that. And I thought, well, Carlisle, you might get away with it if she's not the quickest. And then we took her to Cheltenham because they still couldn't school her, and she finished second in the listed race. Yeah. So the form of the horses around us good. The horses that have finished second and third tour have come out and won. So the horse that beat her, the Glancing Queen, ran really well in the listed bumper, Alan King's mare. So you would be hopeful she'll continue to improve, and she's just turned 5, so she's still quite young.
And she's got, I wouldn't imagine, idly big entries. She's obviously very well regarded, future, long term. I assume also by the fact that she's a pointer, she's going to improve with going over a bit of a trip.
She's from the family of Snoopy Loopy. She's quite well bred. She's a first foal. She isn't overly slow at home, which was why we gave her the entry in the bumper, but it's generally stayers that win bumpers anyway. Your fast horses often don't quite get home in a true run bumper, and we just let her make the running because we didn't want it to be an idle race. And you would think so, but being a young horse, I wouldn't step her up to 3 miles for another year.
Buster Valentine, who recently ran at Cheltenham on trials day, of course the result would have been slightly different were Brewing Up a Storm not to have fallen, but ultimately what your horse did, how much pleasure did you take in that?
A lot. When he come a little bit later, and it just took a little bit longer. He went back to Ireland after the sales and then come back to me, and it just took a little bit longer to get going and sort of settle in, and he's filled out a bit since he come. You know, when he won at Ayr, we knew it wasn't a great race on paper, and when we took him to Newcastle, it was such a slow ran race, albeit a better race on paper, that we just learnt nothing. And we had a double penalty and a handicap mark, but we'd learnt nothing about the horse. So it was a little bit throwing him in the deep end and seeing how he got on. And he travelled and jumped really well. He just lacked a gear at the end of his races. They quickened away from him, but he showed a lovely attitude. He was determined to be third. Well, he would have been third. He was determined to be second. He was beating the horse upsides him, and he jumped great. And you know, Leighton gave us really good feedback. He said, you know, I maybe wouldn't take him to the festival because it can be a bit stop-start. It wouldn't suit him. Yeah. He said his 2 wins have come on flat tracks. He didn't not handle the track, but he said you might be better going to Aintree rather than coming here, you know, later in the year. But he's come back from the race, and I think it's done him good because he's come out of it really well, and he'll have learned a lot from it.
I was going to say, for all that you learn about him, it probably works both ways, doesn't it? Because he gets that battle experience that perhaps he wouldn't get taking on lesser opposition.
Well, that's it, and he's got the double penalty now. So, I mean, he went up £5, he's 130. They've initially given him a mark of 125, but I don't think it's an unreasonable mark for him. You know, you've won 2 races in a point-to-point and finished second in a graded novice hurdle. Albeit maybe you should have been third, but you know, if they come out and run well at Cheltenham, you won't be disappointed, will you?
I always ask so many people this, and I'm always fascinated to know what's your dream race? If you could win anything, what would it be?
Do you know what it is? The Ascot Gold Cup on the flat.
Really?
Yeah, I love that race.
Why?
Absolutely love it. I don't know. Absolutely love it. I think it's one of my favourite races of the season. True stayers on the flat. Love it.
So going the dual
Yates
purpose
is one of my
route.
favourite. Yeah,
really?
Yates is one of my favourite horses going. I love him as a stallion as well. But I absolutely adore that race. If I could win any race, it would be that.
Be a hell of a day, wouldn't it? Mid-June.
Yeah, Dad's was always the Queen Mother Champion Chase because he said specialist 2 milers are amazing, and you only have to watch LTR, don't you? Yeah. You know all them horses, and it's a great race, and I love that race as well. But yeah, if it was any race, I think my favourite race is the Ascot Gold Cup on the flat.
Get the hat ready. Well, unfortunately, that's all we have time for this week here on This Racing Life. We'd like to thank everybody who made this week's show possible, and thanks to you at home for watching. Very much hope that you enjoyed the show. Next week, we'll be back with another edition. Have a great week, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.